If you've been following the events playing out around the world over the last week, it's more of the same, maybe a little worse, or maybe a little better. You're going to have to be the judge, but you should be following the stories that we're going to outline here as their outcome, they're going to impact your lives. The world and the government, they remain at odds with each other. The Middle East continues to smolder, and we're witnessing an alarming number of cross-border strikes, some even initiated by the United States. Ukraine fears an increased Russian assault on their infrastructure as winter closes in on them later this month. And China agrees with the U.S. on some issues, secretly presses forward with militarizing secret bases, and mostly disagrees with the United States, even as Biden and Xi plan to meet this week. And are we about to face another government shutdown? We'll explore all this and more in this week's video. We'll also do our weekly giveaway, so definitely stick around for that. So let's get into it. Middle East. As we caution to watch for, things are heating up with Hezbollah in Syria in response to ongoing attacks on U.S. troops by Iran-supported proxy fighters amidst the Israeli-Hamas conflict. The United States conducted airstrikes in Syria, targeting a weapons storage facility and a command and control center used for training Iran-linked militants. Now, this marks the third round of retaliation, with the United States aiming to deter further escalation in the region. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin emphasized the priority of protecting U.S. personnel and interests, framing the strikes as part of a broader strategy. Now, in the past, U.S. troops were restrained even as Russian fighter jets buzz their position daily, so this more direct engagement may indicate a shift to preemptive military action. Now, the next step may be responding more directly to these Russian flybys, but I think that's still too overt. Now, Iran continues to utilize militants throughout the Middle East to attack U.S. troops. And since the latest chapter in the Israel-Gaza conflict unfolded, there have been at least 46 attacks on or involving American forces in Iraq, Syria, and the Red Sea region. Now, these attacks have left at least 56 personnel with a combination of traumatic brain injuries and minor injuries. Now, Iran's motivations are simple. First, they can wage war against Israel and the United States at arm's length and with the ability to deny direct involvement. And second, they help Russia by distracting the world's attention from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, tensions between Hezbollah and Israel, they've also escalated along the border with Lebanon, resulting in the deadliest exchanges since the 2006 cross-border war. Hezbollah claims that over 70 of its fighters have been killed, and Israel reports 7 soldiers killed. Now, the U.S. has called for restraint, deploying 2 aircraft carriers along with the supporting vessels to the region to prevent a wider conflict. And despite efforts to avoid an all-out war, the situation remains volatile, with both sides issuing warnings and the risk of further escalation looming. Now, regarding Gaza and Hamas, a potential deal for Hamas to release around 80 hostages in exchange for Palestinian women and teenagers held by Israel is being explored. And the deal involves releasing women and children hostages in Gaza, although its certainty remains unclear. The U.S. is reportedly considering various options in this matter, and as been seen in recently released footage, Hamas continues to use civilian structures like hospitals to launch their attacks and stage their defenses. Now, there's a lot of U.S. military might in the region under constant threat and attacked by Iranian-backed militants. And across the Middle East, U.S. forces risk becoming involved in a more significant conflict that could entangle some of the more than 40,000 military personnel based across the region. We'll continue to monitor this situation. Well, what do you think? Do you think cooler heads are going to prevail, or is it just a matter of time before this escalates further? Ukraine. After 7 weeks of calm in the skies over Kiev, Russian forces have carried out their first missile attack on the capital. Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky warned the Ukrainian people of a winter of Russian airstrikes on civilian infrastructure. And during the winter, approximately 10 months into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russia launched multiple attacks on power stations and other facilities connected to the energy network. Now, these assaults resulted in widespread rolling blackouts affecting the country. It is uncertain as to how many missiles Russia has or can manufacture after a year of sanctions and assaults. And it is known that they have been resorting to Iranian-made drones, but these are slow, they're loud, and they're more easily shot down. Ukraine will pour its energy into building an air defense system to protect infrastructure through this upcoming cold winter. And Russian officials report Russia striking Ukrainian infrastructure 60 times in recent weeks, hinting at an ongoing campaign. Now, the U.S. was reportedly purchasing 60 self-propelled artillery systems, or the Gepard, from Jordan for Ukrainians' use in shooting down slower Iranian drones initially acquired by the U.S. from Germany. Now, the Netherlands also have sold these German-produced systems to Jordan in 2013. The Ukrainian army has been actively using self-propelled anti-aircraft guns like these to target Russian drones, preserving expensive projectiles for advanced air defense systems like the Patriot and the Iris-T, which focus on anti-missile defense. Also adding to Ukrainian air defense potential long-range strike capabilities, the Ukrainian Air Force will likely receive F-16s this winter, according to retired General Petraeus. Now, this will help Ukraine capitalize on sinking Russian troop morale, according to the general. And the retired general also indicated that he thought it was unlikely that Russia would try and open an additional front with NATO-aligned countries. He said maintaining high troop motivation is historically decisive in war, and morale is lacking amongst Russian troops. Now, this will likely worsen over the harsh winter. Half the days in November will see precipitation across the region, and overnight temperatures will dip below freezing by mid-month. Now, soon roads will be impassable for heavily armored vehicles, and the war will have to switch to the air. Now, likely, we'll also see Ukraine using small insurgency groups, as they've allegedly done successfully in recent weeks across the Dnipro River. And when it comes to unmotivated troops and perhaps in desperation, Russia reportedly plans to deploy a battalion of Ukrainian POWs to the front lines, with the state media indicating that they have sworn allegiance to Russia, raising concerns about potential violations of international laws on the use of POWs. Now, the move has sparked questions about the quality and motivation of Russia's forces, as the country faces significant casualties and challenges on the battlefield. The Institute for the Study of War suggests that the POWs may be sent to operate under the Donetsk People's Republic, or DNR, Kashka formation, indicating possible deployment in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, where heavy fighting has occurred in recent weeks. And I have to believe this move will backfire horribly for them. And at the very least, it violates the Geneva Convention on Prisoners of War. Now, Ukraine's anticipated counteroffensive has yielded limited progress and substantial casualties as its forces encounter challenges breaching Russian lines on the southern front. And simultaneously, Moscow's troops are trying to advance in the northeast, possibly aiming to divert Kiev's attention and reduce the number of Ukrainian forces available for critical battles in the southern and eastern regions. Now, the winter stalemate may manifest as a diplomatic front. Ukraine President Zelensky praised the European Commission's recommendation to invite Kiev to begin U.S. membership talks despite ongoing conflict with Russia. And the Commission specified that formal talks should commence once Ukraine fulfills conditions related to corruption control, lobbying laws, and national minority safeguards. And while facing hardships due to Russia's war, Ukraine has met 4 out of the 7 conditions, with more in progress. And the EU leaders will decide on the Commission's recommendations as early as mid-December, with Hungary posing a potential obstacle. If accepted, formal accession talks could start next year, marking a significant step toward Ukraine's EU integration. Now, I wouldn't expect this to really manifest so quickly, though. It's more for show. Turkey, for instance, is not part of the European Union, but they've been a candidate for membership since 1995. But still, it will further aggravate the Kremlin. And Turkey's position continues to lean towards Moscow, and now the European Union may have had enough of the country. Turkish President Erdogan has suggested the possibility of severing ties with the European Union in response to a resolution adopted by the European Parliament in September. And based on a European Commission report, the resolution asserted that Turkey's EU accession process could not resume without Ankara's drastic change of course. Now, Erdogan accused the EU of trying to sever ties and stated that Turkey might part ways with the EU if necessary. And at the same time, Turkey's Ministry of Foreign Affairs criticized a resolution for including unjust accusations and prejudices. And if Turkey strongly shifts alliances of wars in both the Middle East and in Ukraine, they're going to dramatically change. Turkey is bounded on the north by the Black Sea, and on the northeast by Georgia and Armenia, and on the east by Azerbaijan and Iran, and on the southeast by Iraq and Syria, and on the southwest and the west by the Mediterranean Sea and the Aegean Sea, and the northwest by Greece and Bulgaria. It's centrally located to too many of these conflicts. So what do you think? Will the situation continue to deteriorate over this winter, or could potentially more fronts open up in this war? China. China is continuing construction of a new naval base at Ream in Cambodia, and both China and Cambodia deny the base is being built to support the Chinese Navy. However, the base now appears even more expansive and capable than previous reports suggested. And satellite imagery shows the construction dry dock is large enough to accommodate Chinese aircraft carriers, and the Royal Cambodian Navy barely has a vessel over 50 meters long. The Cambodian government and some Chinese sources have denied that the base is for the Chinese Navy, but however, this argument is increasingly implausible. China's naval expansion is not limited to Cambodia. It spans several locations in the Indian Ocean, Middle East, and Africa. In addition to the well-known base in Djibouti, China faced accusations of building a secret military facility in the United Arab Emirates in 2021, and there are reports of a potential resumed construction in 2023. Now, plans for a naval base in Equatorial Guinea and the possibility of another base in Oman, they add to China's strategic reach, with a base in Reem potentially rivaling or surpassing the size of the Djibouti facility. Now, China and the United States are not entirely at odds with one another. In a significant agreement set to be announced at a bilateral meeting, Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping are expected to pledge a ban on using artificial intelligence in autonomous weaponry and the control and deployment of nuclear warheads. Now, score one for the humans and mark against Skynet. Now, all kidding aside, the potential dangers of AI will be a significant focus on the discussions addressing concerns over unregulated technology use in fueling conflicts. And both countries have previously expressed concerns, with the United States introducing a framework for responsible military AI use, and the agreement is seen as a positive step. However, differences remain on contentious issues such as Ukraine, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. Now, the two presidents' meetings will not be marked with an agreement on any other issues than one, however. When President Xi Jinping made his first state visit to the United States in 2015, publicly expressing hope for peaceful coexistence, he privately warned the People's Liberation Army of the inevitability of intensified competition and potential conflict with the United States. Now, newly revealed speeches by Xi made to the military and Communist Party officials show a fatalistic conviction that China's rise would prompt a backlash from Western rivals trying to maintain dominance. As Xi prepares to meet President Biden, the stark view of China's leader highlights the challenge of managing the superpower rivalry that will shape the 21st century. The two world leaders will meet this week at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco. This will be Xi's first trip to the United States in 6 years and his first to San Francisco since he was a provincial Communist Party secretary. What do you think? Do you think the conflict with China is inevitable? Possibly a proxy war in Taiwan, like we're seeing in Ukraine with Russia and Israel with the Middle East. Giveaway. For this week's giveaway, we're going to give away a Survival Seeds garden kit. And in a future video, I'll use the tool to draw a winner from the comments on this video randomly. Now, I'm not going to contact you unless your name appears on the screen next week. The subscriber Gina Kush is the winner of the last video's potassium iodide tablet giveaway. Congrats. I'll reach out to you shortly to get that sent to you. US Shutdown. Now, I've been doing these news segments for long enough that I know how many times we alert you of the threat of a shutdown. It seems like the possibility of one looms in our future every other month. And each time when it appears we're about to slam into a wall, at the last second, some concessions are made in this game of chicken. Now, faced with the risk of a government shutdown at the end of the week, U.S. House Secretary Mike Johnson's compromise plan to avert the crisis is encountering resistance from a group within his own party. Now, Johnson's two-step continuing resolution, which lacks spending cuts, funding for Israel and Ukraine, and conservative policy writers, faces opposition from at least 7 House Republicans. And Democrats' support remains uncertain, but is very unlikely. Now, the House plans to vote on the plan on Tuesday, and with a narrow Republican majority, Johnson needs Democratic votes for success. The current budgeting law will sunset in a week, which means no money is approved to fund the government. And despite an unusual structure that sets different funding deadlines for different parts of the government, Johnson's continuing resolution amounts to a clean bill without spending cuts, policy provisions, or other strings attached. The kind of measure that led to the historic ouster of his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, by his own right flank. Now, opponents of this plan point out that setting up different funding deadlines for different parts of the government takes a seemingly endless budget battle from an annual conflict to a never-ending conflict as each side bickers over aspects of funding and spending. Now, the ongoing partisan gridlock, accentuated by fractures within the narrow 221 to 212 House Republican majority, led Moody's late on Friday to lower its U.S. rating outlook to negative from stable. It has noted that high interest rates would continue to drive borrowing costs higher. So, The damage to the economy has already started. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you definitively if we're heading to another shutdown. Now, I can say that the brutal infighting will continue even as federal revenue continues to decline and mounting costs amass for interest, health, and pension outlays. Now, does it take a psychic or an economist to understand that every passing day erodes a country's economic stability? And eventually, something it's got to give. So I wouldn't rush out and make any big purchases in that climate, and I would encourage you to get a hold of our free recession-proofing download guide, which I'll link to in the comments and description below. We'll continue to monitor these and other important issues that you might want to consider following because they're going to impact you in the future. You hope these segments encourage and inform you as you continue your prepping activities. Now, I'll finish the video up by a few personal notes here. You can tell obviously with my voice. A little sick, dealing with allergies. So I had a video I released the other day and I narrated and someone said that the voice was AI because of my voice sounded different. So it's me. But we recently, last week, launched our new community portal, which did way better than I initially thought. We more than doubled our subscriber sign up from the original anticipated number. So we're off to a great start. We've launched what we're calling our founders launch, where we're building with the community, getting feedback from those that signed up. So if you are interested in being alerted when we launch it the next time, I'll put a link below and you can sign up for just an email alert when we launch that. Also, I have started in earnest on my grow shed, finally started making some real progress. We built out a shed that goes onto the main shed. It's a tiny shed, but it holds our battery and inverter system. I decided to do it off separately from the main system so that it doesn't have to deal with the humidity and other issues that will be in the grow shed. But I've got that up and running and getting AC and DC connection from solar. That's being done this week. So we'll be moving that and I'll be giving you some updates here shortly. I know there's a lot happening in the world, but as always, my encouragement is stay vigilant, stay prepared, keep active, keep working on your preps. Again, I know it can feel overwhelming with some of these news segments because there's so much that's happening in the world. And again, even as I started off the video stating out that it kind of seems like this is a new normal, right? It's no better, no worse than it was a week ago. It's just here we are moving one step closer to what seems to be a cliff. But in all of that, I find comfort in knowing that I've got a community like you, I've got others that are around me that are helping, and I'm taking steps, and that's all I can do. The thing is with all of this is that you're not a victim, you have opportunities and you have time, and I would encourage you to take advantage of it. If that's just deciding to learn a new skill this week, if it's putting an extra can of food away, take action. Now's the time, and this is all we have. So I would encourage you to take advantage of it. If you have any thoughts, any feedback, feel free to post it below, and as always, stay safe out there.